Hello, welcome. We are here for our Wednesday, February 4th, Teaching and Learning Subcommittee, and this is a meeting of the whole. First on the agenda is our Advanced Learning Opportunities with Mike Bronny. Feel free.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to begin tonight's presentation just starting with gratitude. The prompt that we had to put this PIP together really emphasized a few things that I'd just like to take a moment to highlight. The first is that we just have such a variety of advanced learning opportunities across all three levels. And we knew this before writing the program improvement plan, but to see it together in a single document, it's really refreshing to see all the different pathways students have to be able to access advanced learning. The second piece I just want to emphasize is the act of putting this together really helped us move away from kind of viewing each program in its silo, but instead as a continuum from elementary through middle and to high school. So it was a good, I guess, perspective shift in terms of how we look at these programs. They've been successful far before the presentation that we're going to share tonight, but it's really nice to be able to put it together in a single document and present to all of you. And then also, I just want to share one brief anecdote that I think emphasizes the values that are written in this PIP. As a former Snug Harbor principal and a former Broadmeadows principal, I had the opportunity to work with students as they were elementary students, and then again when they were middle school students. And I'm reminded of a specific student who I worked with at Snug Harbor as an elementary school student for many years. And then I got to work with him again when he was in 8th grade. So only a couple years went by, but those were transformative years for that student. And I say that because in elementary, this student had some academic struggles. Great kid, but academic struggles required intervention services, needed added support. Fast forward to 8th grade at Broadmeadows, this student is a straight A student. He was attending all neighborhood advanced courses and was scheduled to take 2 advanced courses at the high school level. So again, when we talk continuum and when we look at kind of the educational journey of each of our students, I think that anecdote represents the importance of creating multiple pathways for our students. We were able to support this student when that student was ready to get to that advanced level, and we had that segue right into that programming. And so to me, what I am so grateful for is that this district really provides multiple access points to get to that same end result, whether that's AP, whether that's dual enrollment, or the variety of programs we offer. Before I hand it over to Ms. Vaughn, who's going to talk about the elementary programming, I just want to share some brief bullet points that should be highlighted throughout this PIP. The first is that, as I mentioned, it spans from elementary, middle, and high school. And by design, the opportunities increase as students age. So when they go from elementary to middle school, they have neighborhood advanced courses. So that's at every middle school, in addition to the APC program, which is housed at Central Middle School. So that's one thing that's worth pointing out. And then obviously when they get to high school, then it opens up the early college high school programming, the AP programming, honors, advanced, so on and so forth. So again, those opportunities increase as our students grow throughout their time at Quincy Public Schools. And I do just want to emphasize that whenever we talk advanced learning, I think sometimes people might be curious about what is the difference, right? If we look at kind of a general education classroom versus advanced. Now, instructionally, there's a variety of differences. It really is, it comes down to the teachers and the students they're facing. But ultimately, all advanced learning opportunities are designed to extend the core curriculum, not replace it. Okay, and that's just worth noting because really what's happening for students, regardless of their age range, whenever they're in an advanced learning program, really what's happening is they're getting access to increased depth in the instruction, the complexity of what they're learning, right? So along with reasoning and application over time. So these are all the things that you'll see change as the learning opportunity goes from, let's say, general to advanced. It doesn't mean the experience is dramatically different for the students in the sense of all students get that opportunity. You just might see it less prompted by teachers at the advanced level because we're starting to see students be able to produce that on their own, again, as they get older. So with that, I just want to hand it over to Ms. Vaughn. She plays a key role in the elementary programming, specifically within the REACH program. So I'll hand it over to Ms. Vaughn.
Thank you, Mr. Marani. It's great to see everyone this evening. So as Mr. Marani said, as part of our Advanced Pathways Program Improvement Plan, Quincy Public Schools is strengthening and clarifying a continuum of advanced learning opportunities that begins early, expands over time, and provides multiple entry points for students as they demonstrate readiness. So I have the fortune tonight to share with you some of the specifics that are happening at the elementary level. The continuum begins with enrichment in elementary school and more formally in the grade 5 REACH program. Students engage in targeted instruction that allows teachers to observe emerging strengths, academic readiness, and learning behaviors. These early opportunities are about exposure, giving students access to enrichment, problem solving, and higher level thinking that can spark interest and reveal potential. In grade 4, the work becomes more structured through advanced learning opportunities provided by enrichment teachers at every elementary school. The sessions occur once a month for 90 minutes, and they're designed to offer increased academic challenge through inquiry-based lessons, collaborative problem solving, and exposure to new and more complex academic tasks. Eligibility is determined using multiple measures, including MCAS results in mathematics and reading, as well as NWEA MAP data. Approximately the top 10% of students at each school are identified, and families are notified of eligibility in October of grade 4. In grade 5, the continuum continues through the grade 5 REACH program, which is also offered at all elementary schools. REACH meets once a week and builds upon the foundation established in earlier grades by deepening students' engagement with advanced content and critical thinking. Eligibility, again, relies on multiple data points, including NWEA MAP data and MCAS results, with approximately 20% of students at each school identified. Families are notified in September of grade 5, allowing students to access advanced learning opportunities for the entire school year. Across these elementary programs, the focus is consistent to provide meaningful academic challenges for students who demonstrate readiness, while also supporting early identification of strengths and ensuring equity through the use of common criteria and multiple measures. Importantly, these programs are offered across all elementary schools, ensuring access regardless of a student's location within the district. As a year-long enrichment overview of the grade 5 REACH program, that would include a dynamic blend of STEM, art, critical thinking, and real-world application designed to challenge and inspire curious minds. As part of the grade 5 REACH program, students engage in weekly enrichment experiences that emphasize higher level thinking, problem solving, creativity, and academic independence. So for example, I'll give you some specifics of these. For STEM and design thinking, students tackle open-ended, hands-on STEM challenges that mirror real-world engineering problems. Rather than following step-by-step directions, students work in teams to define problems, test prototypes, analyze failures, and revise solutions. Some examples of these include designing and testing structures that must meet specific constraints like materials, budget, or environmental factors, applying engineering design cycles to solve authentic problems such as energy efficiency or space usage, and reflecting on design choices using data, sketches, and peer feedback. These challenges build resilience, collaboration, and the ability to apply science and math concepts in meaningful ways. Another example for art and visual communication, REACH students explore how art communicates ideas, values, and solutions. Lessons go beyond technique to focus on intentional design and visual storytelling. In mathematical learning, REACH emphasizes depth, reasoning, and perspective. Throughout the year, students engage in weekly logic puzzles and non-routine problem solving that require multiple strategies. The focus is on how students think, not just the final answer. Another example, there is a law and logic unit where students learn to think like lawyers, examining real-life court cases and ethical dilemmas. These experiences strengthen argumentation, critical thinking, and respectful discourse. In addition, all of the students through all of these examples use research or strengthen research and presentation skills through independent and guided inquiry. They research a famous architect and an eco-friendly building product of their choice, evaluate sources for credibility and relevance, synthesize their information into infographics and slide presentations, and practice clear and confident oral presentation skills. In literature and historical inquiry, students engage in a deep novel study of Fever 1793 by Laura Halsey Anderson, integrating literacy and history and ethics. Let's see, one of my personal favorites is a year-long poetry and creative writing where students explore poetry as both readers and writers. They study poetic forms and devices, analyze mentor texts. They draft, revise, and curate original poems into a personal poetry collection, which is really impressive. So each student then becomes a published author, emphasizing pride, voice, and craftsmanship. And finally, the Tiny House Design Challenge is a culminating project. The Tiny House Design Challenge brings together math, engineering, art, and research in a comprehensive long-term project. They create scaled two-dimensional floor plans using area, perimeter, and proportional reasoning. They design elevation views and landscape plans, use 3D digital modeling tools to refine designs, and then they have to justify their design decisions based on efficiency, sustainability, and livability. So this project exemplifies the REACH's program emphasis on integration, creativity, and real-world application. So the Grade 5 REACH program is a key part of Quincy Public Schools' continuum of advanced learning opportunities, which begins with early enrichment and expands over time. Throughout the improvement plan that Mr. Marani will continue with, you'll notice that it emphasizes alignment across grade levels. So advanced learning is not just a single decision or a moment, but a pathway. By strengthening the continuum, we aim to better support student potential, promote academic excellence, and ensure that advanced learning opportunities are accessible, data-informed, and clearly communicated to families throughout a student's K-12 experience. And so I will pass it over to Mr. Marani to continue.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. So now if we shift gears to middle school and high school. So at the middle school level, as I mentioned earlier, there's really two differentiated pathways of advanced learning. The first, the most commonly known, is the APC program. That is housed at Central Middle School. Approximately 214 students are currently enrolled. That's grades 6 through 8. It is roughly 10% of each grade level. So if you're looking at it in terms of what percentage of total student body, it's roughly 10%. And I do just want to add to gain access to that program, we use the CTP screening system. That I do just want to include the idea that it really starts the screening process in the MAP platform that we use. So when we're screening students, I think it's important to note that all students are being screened. They're starting through the MAP system. So our district-wide benchmarking system is essentially that first round of screening. And then when you see the top 20% performers, those are the students that would then qualify for the CTP screener. And of that, roughly 10% are then qualifying for that APC program. One of the strengths of Quincy Public Schools is, well, if a student just misses that or doesn't qualify for that, every middle school has a neighborhood advanced course offering. So that's in math, science, and ELA. So what's great about that, and we'll see this a lot when we're looking at the screening results, you might have a student that's very strong in math, and the screening results show very, I should say the quantitative reasoning results show very high achievement in math, but possibly in the verbal reasoning results, it might be a little bit lower. So it might keep them from getting into APC, but it doesn't mean there aren't advanced skills on the part of that student. And those are the students that would then go into the neighborhood advanced programs. And so in conversations with many of the APC teachers who also teach neighborhood advanced over at Central, they will say all the time that there are plenty of students within their advanced neighborhood courses that are extremely successful academically and very high level and can go in great depths in terms of discussion and processing information. So again, that's a strength because there's still two pathways that exist at the middle school level. And I do just want to mention across the district, 628 students are enrolled in our neighborhood advanced programming. So again, that's grades 6 through 8 across grades 6, 7, and 8. And so then when we shift gears to high school, so at the high school level, we see even more pathways increase. So the most commonly known one are the AP courses. So we currently offer 22 advanced placement courses, and those are AP courses, which means they're ending with an AP exam, which means that AP exam is driving the content that's being taught throughout the year, right? So essentially we're preparing those students for that AP exam at the conclusion of the year, which potentially, depending on the results, could earn them college credits. But in addition to that, and let me just take one step back, I want to give you the combined enrollment. And I say combined because you might have students in multiple AP courses. We have 1,364 students enrolled in an AP course. That covers any student from grades 9 through 12 enrolled in an AP course. Again, that could be one student taking 3 AP courses, and they would be counted 3 times towards this number. Additionally, we have early college high school pathway, and I won't divulge too much into the details because I know Mr. Segal is going to be presenting on that in the near future, but we have 255 students enrolled in that program. That's just grades 10 through 12. We have grade 9 that's not included in the table that you see. That's an additional, I believe, 48 students, so it brings the total up to 303 students enrolled in the early college high school pathway. And then I also just want to point out when we shift to advanced courses and honors courses, so separate from the AP courses, we offer 35 advanced courses across the district. And then we also offer 151 honors courses throughout the district between the 2 high schools. For the total amount of students that are in at least one honors course, we have 2,356 students enrolled in at least one honors course. When you narrow that down to advanced courses or advanced placement courses, we see 1,222 students enrolled in at least one of those courses. So they might be enrolled in more, but that's what the data point is. And then from a curriculum standpoint, at both the middle school and high school levels, and I did allude to this earlier, all of the courses emphasize the increased pace, the greater depth of learning, and the subject-specific thinking. And I do just want to share that when speaking to a lot of these advanced level teachers, one of the most common things that was mentioned over and over again was the opportunity for student discussion is amazing at this level. So what's great from an instructional standpoint is these students are prompting one another to support what they're saying, provide evidence to support what they're saying. They're coming up with their own questions, whereas as compared to a general ed classroom, you might see a little bit more prompting on the part of the teacher, right? So we're still bringing students forward regardless. It's more how they're getting there that you'll see a little bit of a difference. And I do just want to note, as I mentioned, the AP courses are really driven by AP exam, which are designed by the College Board. But then also with the Math Desmos curriculum, because that is a new curriculum we've recently adopted, there is an accelerated track. And so what's nice about that is whether you are in Neighborhood Advanced or whether you are in the APC program, you will get that accelerated track within the Math Desmos curriculum. And that is designed so that when students are walking out of 8th grade, they've had a complete Algebra 1 course under their belt. So when they're walking into their 9th grade year, they're ready for geometry. I'm going to pause for a minute and just acknowledge, because obviously between Ms. Vaughn and what I'm saying, there's a lot happening. I want to acknowledge all of the principals and all of the teachers who really make this possible. They are the ones working directly with the students to offer that in-depth instruction. They're the ones that truly make it an advanced learning experience for the students. And that's through a lot of effort that you'll see in their school improvement plans, that you'll see in their day-to-day operations. And so it's worth acknowledging that, again, these actions have been taken for many years prior to this PIP. I just want to provide a brief overview of the 3 goals that you have in that program improvement plan. The first goal is really about setting up teams at the elementary and middle school levels so that we can really start to identify patterns and trends among our students from elementary through high school. So in other words, we want to be able to see by the time they're in high school, well, what was their educational journey that brought them there? Is there anything that we can do to improve that? Is there anything that needs to be fixed? Or what are the strengths of that experience? So we want to formalize the analysis of that by putting teams together to really look at the experience from elementary, as early as elementary, depending on the student, or middle school, or they might start their first advanced course at the high school level. Regardless, we want to be able to monitor what that pathway looks like for individual students. The second goal focuses on curriculum review. So another part of this, as we look at the continuum, by putting these teams together, we want to make sure that we're looking at the curriculum to ensure that whether it's working this year or next year, but maybe in a few years, maybe there's a change in the standards and now we need to look at the curriculum again. We want to systematically put in place the review process of the curriculum to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the advanced learners that are participating in that program. So that's the second goal. And the third goal is really about looking at kind of the culmination point, which is high school, right? We're driving them all towards high school. And so we want to create opportunities, but we also want to be careful in how we place students in those opportunities. So it's not, when we talk advanced learning, it's not just about increasing enrollment. Of course, we want every student to be able to take advantage of advanced learning opportunities, but when they're ready. And we want to make sure that when they're ready, we can position them for success. And so goal 3 is really about looking at high school participation rate, which is an accountability data point brought forth by DESE. But in addition to that, we want to pair that with the AP exam averages. So if we're looking at AP exam averages and we're seeing, let's say, those scores going up and we're also seeing enrollment going up, we know we're moving in the right direction. If we were to see enrollment dramatically increase, but we were to see the AP exam scores take a big dip, now we've got to look at what we're doing and again, determine what to do in that team format, determine the next steps. So that's kind of the 3 goals. I would view all 3 of these goals as starting points. Since this is the first program improvement plan for advanced learning, I would say this is a jumping off point. I'm sure we'll formulate more unique goals specific to programs as we get those teams up and running. And so to close, I just want to add a couple items. This reflects the strengths that have already existed throughout Quincy Public Schools. There's really not much new in here that hasn't been happening for many years, other than we're now going to take a more intentional approach in how we monitor these programs. It demonstrates a commitment of thoughtful design, coherence, and continuous improvement along the way whenever that student enters and accesses advanced learning. And then finally, we just want to make sure that whenever we're looking at this, that we're remembering each kid has a story. And if they're not ready for advanced, they have an honors course that's potentially an option, or a CCP course. And regardless of the course they're taking, we're going to get them the best education possible. So whether it's in an advanced track or any other track that we have, it's important to close noting that. So with that, I welcome any questions or feedback you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I just had a couple clarifying questions
Sure.
for you. So for the REACH program, 214 students is the current number? That is where we're at right now?
Yes, that's the current number.
Okay. I just didn't know if any had been added or dropped out since this number was.
That's
given
this
to
school year.
us.
I don't have the exact date of when we pulled it, so I would say it's the most recent data point we have.
Okay. And this is offered to all fifth grade students?
The REACH program is offered to
All
all 11 elementary schools, top 20% within each of those schools. Does that make sense?
Fifth grade classes?
It's the 5th grade classes, yes, but they do have to be screened in. So there's a process to be in it, but it is offered to every
All
5th
fifth grade
grader.
classes, that's what I
Yes.
wanted.
Yeah.
Wanted to stipulate that.
Yeah.
Okay. And the number of the groups, we still follow the same guidelines for group size of class that we have in the Quincy Public School guide. This is still follows. that.
Definitely.
Okay, just wanted to
Yeah.
double check.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I will
course.
open this up to questions from the subcommittee that is on Teaching and Learning Subcommittee first. Mr. Liang?
Hello.
Hi there.
Thank you for the presentation. To the entire advanced learning team, for our first time SIP, this is a very impressive document. The breakdowns, the trends, the summaries, it's all here. So kudos to you. I'm extremely proud of the advanced learning program at Quincy Public Schools. So I just want to thank you all for everything that you do, and echo your sentiment about the principals and teachers. I would urge you to keep up, keep pushing, right? I think we're doing a great job, but there's more that can be done. I did have a question about the number of courses and kind of the summary of how many students take each course. And I wanted to know if these numbers that I'm seeing are the direct result of any specific plan, and I can elaborate on that. Any plan in the design of the program? For example, I think a couple weeks ago, my colleague, Ms. Cahill, asked in a different context about maybe like actively recruiting students for a particular program. So I'm wondering if any of that is reflected in the courses here, right? So 35 advanced courses. Is there any active like recruiting of students as teachers, watch them through their journey, observe them through their journey, and maybe identify like this kid might do well in the Italian advanced placement course?
Yeah, the quick answer to that question is absolutely. Yeah, so that's very common for teachers to have conversations with students of, let's say if there's a student in an honors course and that teacher saying to that student, like, you're totally ready for advanced next year.
Yeah.
You can do this. And it becomes a conversation that then brings in guidance counselors. And a lot of that will then be realized through the scheduling process. But absolutely, I mean, and it could happen the other way around too. A student might ask the teacher, "Do you think I'm ready for advance?" So I would say absolutely, there's a lot of back and forth in that planning process throughout a student's courses.
Excellent, thank you. And then just one other thing, anything to make of some of the dramatic decreases year over year, right? For example, one of the computer science AP courses saw a dramatic decrease in number of students taking the course. Does that reflect anything that you guys see going on, or is it just?
Well, I think it's a fair question, and there were a few courses that we noticed that as we putting this together. And so to the point of this program improvement plan, I would say what this is going to then prompt us to do is to dig into each of these courses a little bit more and try to find the why if there was a significant decrease. And that's both in the exam results and also enrollment too. So we're going to monitor enrollment as well.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this day to see this pitch. I've advanced learning stuff is kind of where why I'm here, why I've advocated for so long for my kids. Just it's been my journey as a parent, and just seeing kind of every grade level what opportunities are and just how heavy a lift this had always been for teachers to be able to differentiate so much for some of these kiddos that need more from the curriculum, need deeper, as you mentioned, Mr. Marani. And it just becomes such a burden on the teachers to have to do that when they have a classroom of kids that are a bunch of ranges. So I think that that's really where this is so fantastic, is it's giving those kids something different, and they can stay with that same curriculum, as you mentioned, but go deeper. Right. So I'm so grateful for this plan. I'm so grateful for the way you're looking at it as a continuum across the grades. As you said, I think, we kind of look at every school and we sort of have them as a subgroup, but I think watching the continuation is so important because it's these same kids that are staying in there. Right. So I have a bunch of different things to add to it, but it's a starting point. I think this is great. I think it's really, it kind of has a really good picture of where we're at right now. Our REACH team staff is amazing, phenomenal teachers that we have on there, and I know that we're limited in what we can do with REACH with the number of REACH teachers that we have. So one priority for me would be to just sort of find a way, I don't know if this, in our budget, to be looking at adding staff to that REACH program. Because if we look at grade 4, it's 90 minutes a month. And they get identified in October, so I'm guessing they're starting in November. So that's basically 12 hours of advanced learning in their 4th grade year, which is about 2 school days. So I'd love to be able to do better with that, to be able to provide those kiddos with even more, closer to what we do for REACH, where it's a full day every week. So that's where I'd love to see that go. At one point, when we were talking about expanding REACH down to grade 4, there was some talk about the REACH teachers working with younger grades, classroom teachers. Can you talk about if that happens, if that communication happens, and what that might look like?
Sure. So because of that 90 minutes on the Wednesdays, and the Wednesdays are typical, half day in the elementary schools, that's usually the time when the 3 enrichment teachers that we have full-time, and we also have another teacher at Marshall that does the grade 4 group there. So they are able to collaborate with the grade level teachers. The teachers can come to them if they, or a parent can come to them and ask for them to observe or just to meet about that. They also have in grade 4 a Google Classroom where when grade 4 students that are not in that enrichment group, they are able to join that, and there's all sorts of challenging activities that they can do independently because, we found that families want that. So any 4th grader can join that. And then, typically that's kind of morphed into, when the other students aren't there and they're with their enrichment teacher, they can have more intervention for what they need. And in addition, with the younger grades, they can have a win block, which is a what I need time of the day, where other teachers and interventionists can provide whatever it is that the student needs, which is now including enrichment. So that's the way that we've been able to accommodate that with, consultation with enrichment teachers that are able to provide a lot of the things that a general education teacher may not have the time to do or know what to look for too.
That's great. That's kind of what we had talked about
Yeah.
happening. I didn't see it in here, so I didn't know if it was happening or it wasn't happening, but I'm glad to know that that's happening, at least in the meantime of getting that program even more robust, because those, grade 4 students in grade 3, they might have needed more. So I think, our goal should always sort of be continuing to look both directions, but, if we can get any more resources for the younger grades, I think that's great. Having REACH, having the 5th grade program be in all the schools versus one school and busing kids there, losing time on either end for busing is phenomenal. I think it's one of the greatest changes we've made to be able to offer a full day of enrichment for those kiddos a week. So I think that's a really great thing that we've done. So that's kind of the elementary, my comments on the elementary level. For the middle school, one of my main concerns is evaluating that APC program, because it's really difficult to find out if it's challenging enough for those kiddos, right? Without having some kind of test or some kind of way to evaluate if they're being challenged. So I had sort of an idea of, as you're looking at the curriculum in your goal number 2, as you're doing a curriculum review, I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but maybe kind of looking at the grades the students are getting in those courses or at the end, and sort of if kids are getting A+, that's great. It means they're working hard, but also maybe they could use a little more, right? So I just wonder if that might be a good way to sort of see if those kids that are getting A+ was that easy for them? Do they need more? That might be a good indicator as to some areas to look at and maybe a way to start. If that's, I always like to try to offer some kind of suggestion if I'm going to
Appreciate
offer a
it, yeah.
question. So that was just an idea I had for middle. And then can you talk a little bit, Mr. Marani, about, you said something about Desmos, with the Desmos curriculum. Now all 8th grade kiddos that are either in the neighborhood advanced and the APC advanced math are going to be starting at geometry? Because I know that there was sometimes, it's like sort of teacher dependent, right? If the teacher thought you were ready for geometry, you went on. If they didn't recommend you for that, you were in algebra again.
Yeah, fair question. And that process is still the same in
Okay.
that depending on each individual student, because they might get through algebra by the time they're completed with 8th grade. But let's say, back to the grade piece, right? If the grade isn't exactly where we want it, it might make sense for that individual to take algebra as a freshman. And so you have to weigh those decisions by each individual kid, and that's why we have teachers looking at the data and making the recommendations accordingly. But ultimately, our goal is for a student who successfully completes either one of those programs has Algebra 1 successfully completed so that it's essentially equivalent to that 9th grade Algebra 1 experience. That's the goal. And I would say that depending on the results of each individual student, that will then determine where they end up the next year.
Gotcha. I just didn't know if it was a difference then from what I remember, but it sounds like it's about the same, which is great.
Yeah, and
no,
that's about the
right where
same.
you
It's
want.
just the
Yeah.
vehicle having the Math Desmos accelerated track is a new change to it.
Gotcha. And then just to kind of go to high school, what I didn't see a lot on the honors and advanced courses in the PIP, but you spoke a lot about that, which is great. Excuse me, sorry. Are we, in order to kind of stay at that level, if a kiddo is in honors and taking honors, there's a certain grade level they have to maintain to stay there. Is that correct?
Yeah, so again, back to the point of the question about like how we recommend for the following year. That really comes down to teacher discussion with guidance counselor and student. So yes, we're absolutely looking at grades, but we're also looking at work ethic, homework completion, those other things that might not. A student might still have a B-, let's say, but it's okay. Do you go to advanced or do you stay in honors? And that's when teachers are communicating with students, with their families, and with the relative guidance counselors.
Okay, all right. So that's kind of, I didn't see that in here, so just maybe that might be a good thing to just sort of remind people kind of where that, what those levels are. If you're in honors or whatever level you're at, if you're maintaining, say, a B average, is that something that you would stay the same? Or if it's an A average, would that teacher, sort of recommend the next grade up, that type of stuff I thought might be interesting to have in there. And then the AP exams. And I feel like this is the most that we've sort of looked at AP classes as ours, right? Because I sort of felt like when we were talking about them, the curriculum isn't really determined by us, right? And the national test, it's
the
kind
College
of out of
Board.
our hands, right? So I've always sort of felt like those have been like, well, those are those classes, and we can't really do much about that. But I think looking at the exam results is super important because our teachers are getting across that curriculum, right? And if they're getting it across well, our students are going to do well, right? So looking at those scores and seeing how they do, I think is a really great idea. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it seems like a 4 or a 5 on an AP exam. That's when a college will accept the credit. Does that sound accurate to you?
Depends.
Yeah.
Depends on the school,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I was noticing in here that there are only 2 in the average 2025 grades. There were only 2 that were a 4 or higher. So of all of these grades. So that's just really frustrating for the kiddo and the family that spent $105 per AP test to I have a kid that is taking 5 AP tests and it's 500 and whatever that math is that I'm not doing right now dollars, and when they're not getting those scores that are going to get them that college credit, and it's consistent, right? If we're looking at it as a class as a whole year over year and we're sort of seeing that, I think that's our opportunity to sort of work with those teachers and sort of give them maybe more supports, more that we can do and sort of not sort of stay as hands-off as we had been. So I love that that's going to be part of this plan, and that way we look at it.
Yeah, and I share your sentiment. I mean, absolutely. That's part of the benefit of putting this all together and really looking at it as, okay, how can we improve the pathways along the way, and then how can we improve the experience when they are in high school and get them more successful than they already are.
Right, that's perfect. And I just think, you had pointed out the number of kids enrolled in the, in at least one honors, it's 80%. 80% of our high schoolers are taking at least one honors, and 41% of our students are taking at least one advanced, and that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's just part of this program. If we kind of support them early on and we kind of prepare them, they'll have those skills to fight through those, the challenges where it hasn't all come easy forever to them. So I so appreciate this. I'm really glad you did it. I'm really excited to see how it looks next year, too.
Great, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate it.
Ms. Campbell?
Thank you so much. This is really wonderful. I have a question about the AP Humanities courses. It looks like there's a considerably higher number of students who take the AP Humanities exams. And you mentioned earlier about the importance of discussion in class. And I'm wondering how the class size is impacted and discussion is impacted for those who take the humanities AP classes.
That's a very fair question. I don't have the class by class enrollment data in front of me, but what I can say is just part of our typical planning process is at the end of every year, as we look at projected enrollment for the following year, we're looking at all the courses, whether it's AP, Advanced, Honors, CCP, and we're monitoring the numbers so that we can still keep those class sizes at the acceptable level. So without having the specifics in front of me, it's hard to comment, exactly on it, but it's absolutely part of our process to monitor. If we're seeing increase in enrollment, then we might add another offering of that course to keep another section, thank you, another section of that same course to keep the enrollment low.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much. I just need a motion to approve from my colleagues. Motion by Mrs. Perdio, second by Mr. Leung. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
And being that that is the only agenda item we had, motion to adjourn.
Subcommittee Policy Subcommittee meeting for February 4th, 2026. The superintendent needs to make a statement.
Just a advisory, this subcommittee meeting is not a meeting of the whole school committee. Therefore, per open meeting law, only subcommittee members may discuss, deliberate, and vote on matters before the subcommittee. The subcommittee members are Chair Tina Cahill, Paul Begoli, and Catherine Hubley. Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you, Mrs. Cahill, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. Joining me this evening is Jill Bernardo, Quincy High School's CT Department Chair. So we welcome Jill. This evening, we wanted to share two policy. As you recall, in the spring, the Board of Education, Department of Education, adopted a new requirement for admissions. And we wanted to share how those that vote and that approval affects Quincy's CT admissions policy. So we'll just take a few minutes this evening. The first policy is the CT admissions. The rationale is career and technical education schools and programs at comprehensive high schools are required to develop and implement a CT admissions recruitment and retention policy in alignment with the updated CT regulations approved by the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. I'd like to begin with just a few general revisions, and these are all recommendations before you folks. The first is to replace the title of the school committee policy 10.53, CT admissions, with school committee policy 10.53, CT recruitment, admissions, and retention policy. And you'll see that on page 1. Also, replace career vocational technical education, CVTE, with career and technical education, CTEE. And if you can just think about the CTE, it would encompass Chapter 74 programs, non-74 programs, as well as business electives. I believe that's the rationale of the revisions. I'd also like to acknowledge that a few weeks back, we did have a visitation from DZ, our CT director, and she visited both Quincy High and North Quincy High programs. And not only was she so impressed with our programs, but we had a conversation with, would you be willing to review our changes of our policy? And they said yes. and they actually did that. So what you see before you has been pre-approved by the Department of Education, which is very interesting because we traditionally submit, and my fellow colleagues across the state submit their policy, and the DZ makes recommendations back. So we're going back and forth, but they've reviewed this in advance. They made some suggestions, and you'll see those, and we'll talk about them in just a minute. In addition, we also would recommend replace the word under class with grade 9. You'll see on page 2. On page 4 and 5, it's called recruitment and communication. We struck the entire section and inserted a comprehensive plan highlighted in yellow, which you'll see, and we'll talk about that in just a moment with the middle school recruitment policy as well. But if you turn to page 4, all middle schools in the district will actively collaborate with the respective high schools to inform students about CT vocational opportunities available to them. This collaboration includes a variety of samples that we do throughout the year in our middle schools, collaborating with our high schools, including open houses, back-to-school nights, open campus assemblies, course selection planning nights, fly-up days, parent academies, school tours, individual school tours, promotion of events, as well as our online resources, website, Channel 22, and such. So Jill's going to take this on further with the application process.
So as Keith mentioned, when we had our meeting with DESE representatives, they told us the application process begins, you have to look at it from where the entrance into CTE is. And I'm mentioning this only because I think it's going to help explain why we've made the changes that we have made. So fortunately, we did not need to make a lot of changes to the application process for Quincy High School. All grade 9 students currently enter CTE through our freshman exploratory program. All students participate, all grade 9 students participate in it. Therefore, we really don't need to do any sort of lottery in order for students to get into CTE. However, at DESE's recommendation, we did put a line in our policy that in the case that there are more students than we have seats available, we will conduct a lottery for admission into the exploratory program. Fortunately, that's not something we anticipate happening, but they had asked us to include it, so we did. We needed to include new language for North Quincy High School because at North Quincy High School, students enter CTE in 10th grade where they directly pick the pathway that they would like. Therefore, we had to add students wishing to enroll in a CTE program indicate this by selecting the program during the Aspen course selection process in the spring. And any students transferring from a private school also have the opportunity to select a CTE program during the registration process. If students have requested admission to a program that is oversubscribed, meaning we have more students that want a program than we have seats available, we have to use a lottery to determine who gets into that program. The requests for the program, they need to be made by April 1st. The lottery will take place on April 15th. It needs to be public, in a publicly accessible place. We've discussed doing it virtually, and the district will provide 1 week's notice before the lottery takes place. And so the way that it would work is all students that are interested in that pathway, their name would go into the lottery. We would draw all the names. If we had 12 spots available, the first 12 students would get the spots, and the rest of the students would be maintained on a wait list in case another spot opened up. Okay. Any requests we have received after April 1st would be drawn from the lottery only if additional seats became available, because we will be giving priority to people that put their requests in before the April 1st deadline. If students do not get, students and parents will be notified by the director, CT director, if their first choice is not accommodated, and they could be placed in another program, and they will also be put on a wait list. Also, we needed to add in for non-residents of Quincy Public Schools, we needed at DESE's recommendation to add the language that the application process would occur between January 1st through March 1st in order to be considered for admission to school for the next year. And we needed to strike any sort of admissions that dealt with attendance records, conduct, or guidance counselor or teacher recommendation for admissions into a pathway at North Quincy High School. And then we also struck The part applications received after any aforementioned deadlines will be evaluated according to the criteria, because we can no longer use that criteria. And we added new language that I've said before, that any requests received after April 1st will be drawn only if additional seats become available. And then when we referred to, we had the section, I believe it is, let me see. When we talk about oversubscribed pathways, page 9, we can still maintain the same admissions criteria rubrics for oversubscribed programs or pathways, meaning a student in 9th grade is choosing to go into a program in 10th grade. We have too many students that want it, then we have seats available. In that case, we are allowed to use an admissions review process because students are already in CTE. However, at North Quincy, because they're going directly into the pathway, we need to use the lottery process, which we've reiterated here on page 12. That any North Quincy High School student requesting admission to an oversubscribed CT program will be entered into a straight lottery.
We also added 2 new elements, retention strategies. Quincy Public Schools is committed to retaining all students enrolled in CT programs by providing individual support and specific strategies that promote equitable access. And those retention strategies include progress monitoring, counseling and career planning, family engagement, as well as work-based learning. We also added a new element, maintenance of records, and it would be our responsibility to hold records of oversubscribed programs and lists in case the Department of Education does request those. And with that, that would conclude our revisions to and recommendations of the CT admissions policy. CT admissions recruitment and retention policy, that is.
Do you want to go to the next, do you want to, okay, any questions on this portion, on this policy? Mr. Bergoli?
Yeah, how many non-resident students are now enrolled in our program?
0.
Good. That's what I should say. And with the lottery, particularly at North, that runs counter to a merit-based program, correct?
Yeah.
That's wrong. It's unfair and it's wrong. So I don't know what DC's thinking, but it's absurd. So I'm just stating my objection to that. Thank you.
Mr.
So you probably remember last year when we were given the proposed regs, this body sent in a communication to DZ objecting to that very thing. Unfortunately, the Department of Education did pass the regs as proposed, so therefore the lottery is a requirement that we would have to follow under the regs.
Yeah, some of the people in DZ have never had the door of a classroom. So they don't know what they're doing, frankly.
All right.
Here you go.
Thank you. So I'm just curious, why remove the word vocational? Was there a rationale behind that?
I don't know. This is the Department of Ed asked us to do it. I'm assuming because, again, once the CTE would encumber Chapter 74 programs, non-74 programs, as well as business electives. So I think that's the reason. Instead of career vocational, it's career technical, which you would have all those other elements under it. I'm just speculating.
Okay.
I don't know. I can request.
I'm just out of curiosity, I was just curious.
I
And
think,
then.
if I could just say, I think that, so if you read on, DESE's website, see, they've removed vocational from all of the website. And I kind of feel like part of it is because they're trying to make a push for college and career readiness, and they're trying to get away maybe from just being strictly like job or, vocation readiness. That could be my best guess, because I know there's many schools now that are referring to it as college and career technical education.
Okay. And where Quincy High has the 9th grade directive, there's nothing for North Quincy as a 9th grade directive for them to have in that grade?
Exploratory.
You mean director?
Exploratory, sorry.
There is no exploratory because we're under the limit of 4 vocational programs, then you must implement an exploratory program.
Oh, okay. Okay, that was all. Thank you.
And
That's a question I asked last year, about why we don't expand the vocational technical programs at North Quincy High School. It seems like we're running two different school systems here.
Well, we currently have 4 Chapter 74 programs.
I know that.
If we increase certainly the budgetary piece, scheduling, it will be a paradigm shift for the staff at North, not opposed of that would be some training, and certainly we can convene with the superintendent and team to consider that.
Well, I just think it's unfair to students at the north end of the city that they don't have the opportunities that they do at Quincy. So,
Mr. McGill, we are in the process of applying, we're in phase 2 right now of Chapter 74 for engineering technology at North.
right, that's going to be taking place in September, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So we're increasing 74 programs respectfully.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's better than nothing. Thank you.
Okay. So I have a couple of questions. One would be, the only one question I really didn't understand a little bit was the April 1st lottery. So if someone determines after that April 1st or before, after that date, and they get into a lottery to go into the waiting list, is that how it works? I don't understand that, just that one piece. What does that mean?
So
So you have to say you want to, get into a certain program.
If the seats are available,
Yes.
if the seats are available,
You're in,
no, you're in.
right.
If there's a wait list, you're not in.
So then what's the April 1st? It's a lottery, what is the April 1st?
April 1st will be
piece?
the lottery for all students that have registered for that program in advance.
So you're correct in saying, like, anybody that applies, say they wanted a request after April 1st?
Yeah.
They could enter into the lottery, but they would be into the wait list portion.
The wait list
Bottom of-
lottery.
the bottom of the
Okay.
wait list.
Because then what happens is if we have a wait list, at Quincy High, we've been fortunate and the kids have been placed. There have been some wait lists for some programs.
This past year, early education and care was a wait list.
Okay, and then, so you might have 6 kids that are on the wait list. Are there opportunities, have there been opportunities for the kids to come off that wait list?
Yes.
In the past?
Yes, so actually this year we had, for early education and care, we had, I think approximately 8 or 12 students on the wait list. One student that had gotten a placement in the program, I think they moved out of district, and so the next
that
person on
opens
the
up.
wait list moved up, yes.
Okay, and then, so I guess, so does the April 1st, that April 1st lottery piece mean that the kids that are on the wait list for this one program, they go into a lottery to see who comes off the wait list? Or is it by, they're listed, first come, first serve, or
Yeah.
whatever it might be?
You mean for the latecomers?
Yeah,
I think it would be, but,
The back of,
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's the bottom of the list.
Bottom of the list,
Those-
yeah.
The lottery's already happened, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
So those people on the waiting list would move forward,
right.
and the ones that come in late would be on the bottom of the wait list.
So do you need a lottery for that, or can they just be put on a wait list?
It's a good question.
You know what I mean? So,
Or it's non-acceptance. I think that we have that option. If the lottery's already taken place and it's after April 1st,
Right.
I don't think we're obligated to do another lottery, to be honest with you.
yeah, if that's after
We're
the
still
point.
learning.
It just kind of doesn't make, I don't understand the point of it.
Agreed.
If we're giving, if we have a wait list anyway, then what does this do for a student?
right.
Remember, they can also choose their second and third choice in a program as well.
Okay, so can't they just register and get on the bottom of the wait list?
Yeah, they could.
I don't know if that's something that we need to think about, if we should keep it like that, or, I don't understand the lottery piece, but I don't know how to address that.
We're still learning as well.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Now, is that something that DESI determined that we should be including
Yes.
here? Okay, so that was their suggestion.
Yes, there was.
Okay, all right, so, okay, so that was that. I think that was probably my biggest question that we had in terms of the wait list being accepted, oversubscribed, kids get on a wait list. My other question was, which reasonable accommodations for students that might have either an English, language barrier or some kind of disability. And we accept them, just to be clear, we do accept them into our programs and where they may, whatever program they may decide to get into after going through the ninth grade exploratory program. And then who would determine the reasonable accommodations for the students, and we make sure that they're in the class and have what they need to be successful, right? So how do we determine that?
Well, it happens a lot with the teachers. I know, I can think of right now off the top of my head, I know in healthcare tech, we had a student this year that had limited English, and the teacher reached out to the student's EL teacher to make sure, that the student was going to be supported. How can I help the student? So it happens a lot, like from teacher to support personnel, whether it's guidance or an EL teacher. Sometimes teachers will come to me and ask, for my help and assistance with getting the support for the students. One thing we do is when we went to an admissions review this year for early education, I can tell you students have to write a letter or a statement of interest, and we did inform students that if they wanted to write it in their native language, they certainly could do so, so that they had equal opportunity to, as other students had.
Well, I
So-
see that, and I think that's great,
Yeah.
because it helps them with the application process
Right.
and the admissions process, so that's good. But mostly in the classroom, like if it's a student that really needs some support in terms of understanding the directions that are given in the class and things like that, we would have some way for them to, because even if, if it's in a healthcare situation, a student might have a language, their own language that they can bring to them in maybe I'm going to say a hospital setting or a doctor setting where their language skills would help, but also have the training in a healthcare profession, But as long as they have someone in there so basically this means they would have someone there to help them to understand what's happening in the classroom.
Another thing that we often do too is, like, students will help each other. If you have two students that speak the same language, as is often the case in a class, one has, better understanding of English or is able to speak English and understand more, they will often, help the other student, help translate and help bring that student along and help them learn the language, so.
And also, maybe a student who has a physical disability, we would have somebody to support them in the class as well.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. I think that's good. That would be my, and especially knowing that most of this has already been approved by DESE, and they've given you additions and subtractions from what we should be doing.
That is correct.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, do we have to motion this one first? Okay, motion to move this to the main meeting. Mrs. Hubley, second by Mr. Bergoli. Voice vote?
Aye.
Aye.
And that second policy is a middle school pathway exploration policy. This is a brand-new policy for all CBT, CTE districts across the Commonwealth. The rationale, districts with middle schools that have access to career and technical education programs through their high school or through their municipality membership to a regional CTE district must develop a middle school pathway exploration policy in alignment with CTE regulations. And so you'll see the program elements, the policy elements, if you will. There's a policy overview, there's high school pathway options, as well as the middle school career exploration, collaboration with our high schools, as well as providing admissions to records to CT schools and maintenance of records. It's pretty simple and pretty generic. However, it's again here, it's made for Quincy. It has been approved through DESE already, which is great, and they made recommendations. If I could the collaboration of the high schools, once again, we do a lot already in our district at the 7th and 8th grade, promoting career technical education at the high school. Again, open houses, back to school nights, parent academies, FI-UP days and such. You'll see those there as well. Open for questions?
just have one question. How will we be publicizing the tours for the ninth graders?
I believe those are done by the principal, so if you're a parent or a student want to come into the high school of Quincy North, you'd call the high school principal,
Okay,
or myself, and we give certain tours.
so it'll be up to the principal to publicize that out?
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
And, yeah, I'm all set. I did want to say one thing. On the first page of the school committee CVTE, the very top, there's a CVTE at the top of ours, on the original policy.
Middle school?
No, the other one, just, I meant to mention that before, if you look at the, just when you're doing a review, at the very top,
The typo?
yeah.
Do you see it, Laura?
There is a
Is there a strike there?
Strike.
Okay. Sorry. I'm all set. Yep. Motion to approve by Mr. Bergoli, second by
Move it to the
Ms.
main
Hubley, to move it to the main meeting. Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Close it.
Meeting.
Meeting adjourned.